Hi everyone, welcome back. What better day to discuss this incredibly important relationship than on Father's Day? I wanted to look at different types of unhealthy father relationships because this is one of the most important relationships in our lives, is the one that affects our future relationships and our overall sense of self and self-esteem when we grow up as adults. So it's incredibly important for us to really look back at our relationships with our fathers, or that if you have kids now, to see what kind of relationship they have with their fathers and ways that you could improve it, manage it and maintain it. If you haven't been to my page before, welcome. I'm Hamasa. I look at personal development as well as mental and emotional well-being and just day-to-day issues. Please do subscribe to my page so that you're up to date with all my content. So in the UK, today is Father's Day, and I feel like when it's days like this, when it's Valentine's Day and it comes to relationships, or when it's Mother's Day and you don't have a great relationship with your mother, and obviously Father's Day, it puts emphasis on these relationships and it's kind of rubbed in our face a little bit, and those who are lucky enough to have good relationships with their dads are obviously gloating and are happy, and the ones that don't, is really ever more evident for them to see and to feel that gap that they feel when they have a bad relationship or an absent father. So it is something that will affect us throughout our lives, as children, as adults, at every stage, because it is literally how it sets the tone of how you start seeing yourself. Because when you're young and you're a kid and you're a baby and a toddler, the way that your parents regard you gives you your self-worth and value and sets your perception of who you are as a person. So when one of the parents, be it the mother or the father, are not really healthy in their own way and healthy towards you, then that could really change the way you see yourself, how you value yourself and your place in the world. You really will struggle with your sense of identity, because you can't figure yourself out because you didn't have these clear indications from your primary caregivers when you were learning these things in the first place. The first time you knew what things were usually comes from your parents. So if they're not setting clear boundaries or treating you in the right way, then you grow up very confused in your sense of self. So I'm going to look at 5-6 different types of toxic or unhealthy father relationships, and if any of them is you, then it's things that you really need to look within and work on and see how they're affecting you today. And the first one is the absent father, of course, the one that's not around, the one that's lost, that's never there. They let you down, you feel disappointed, that sense of trust in men or in adults or in the world kind of shatters and goes. What happens when a father is not around is that you start looking for that gap to fulfill from your relationships. By an absentee father, I don't mean someone who just abandoned you and left. Someone who could be working abroad, who could just not be present and be there for you. So whenever there's been a milestone, something important in your life, somewhere, a time where you really, really needed him, he just was not there, didn't prioritize you, wasn't present, wasn't emotionally available to you, wasn't supporting you. And it's left a very, very big hole in your life. So that's obviously a very evident sign of an unhealthy father-daughter or father-son relationship. The next one is a dad who's not emotionally available. Now you might think that this is better, or at least they're around, but if someone's around but completely shuts you out, this too could be incredibly detrimental in how we see ourselves, our boundaries, and how we perceive our future relationships and things. It's also just as impactful. When a father isn't emotionally available or validates you as a child emotionally, who so heavily relies on parents for that validation, then this too has really bad effects on you when you grow up. Usually fathers who are not emotionally available tend to put emphasis on doing other things for their children, like being the main provider and making sure that they're fed and they're clothed and they have a roof over their heads, but they don't seem to understand how important it is to emotionally be there for your child and emotionally validate them, and you support them and show interest in their hobbies, likes, dislikes, and celebrate their wins. Even though they're there in other ways, not being emotionally available is also very difficult if it's something that you've dealt with. The next one is like the polar opposite of the first two we spoke about, and that's the overly controlling or overly catering father. Now, this could go both ways. Someone who's controlling then don't really allow their child to grow, to make mistakes, to learn from that, doesn't give them the freedom, the independence, and so they grow up being very sheltered. And the flip side of that, or kind of slightly different variation of that, is the pampering father, where they overly cater and are overly involved in their child's life, where they spoil them, there's no healthy boundaries set. The child grows up to think that everybody should serve them, they're entitled, they're spoiled, they believe that they're always right, and in relationships they always expect their partners to be of service to them. So when the father is overbearing, be it in a controlling and sort of strict manner or in a very pampering way, excess in both is not healthy, because with the pampering or the controlling, they also put you on a pedestal or have extremely high expectations of you. So you constantly feel the need to perform and to impress, and you feel that pressure. Most times this happens with people who inherit businesses or end up going into family businesses. They feel this pressure that regardless of what, like, this is what I'm destined to do, this is what I'm pressured to do, and I have to perform and not to disappoint my father. Next sign of unhealthy father relationships is a lack of boundaries and good communication. Having a certain level of privacy and respect and healthy boundaries is incredibly important in a household, especially if it's a father-daughter relationship, because sometimes when the father is overbearing, quite strict and controlling, and doesn't respect the privacy and boundaries, he really could feel invading, and you feel just no privacy in your own home, which could create secrecy, a lot of passive aggressiveness, a lot of deceit, and that's not the kind of environment or the kind of unhealthy relationship that you want to be having with your dad. So having clear boundaries is very important, but also having the space to be able to clearly communicate. On the rare occasion, it's okay for you and your parent to argue, or for your parent to argue back with you, and for you to have that space to be able to express your opinions and your thoughts and feelings. Just because you're having a little bit heated conversation or a little bit of an argument is not always a bad thing, or it doesn't mean that you're disrespecting, as long as it's done within boundaries, of course. You have to be given the space to be able to speak and stick up for yourself and give reasoning and give them your version of things. So if they don't give you the space to communicate and be your own person, then that's also not healthy. And finally, all our parents unfortunately do it, but as long as it's again done within boundaries, this whole comparison to other people, this whole constant comparing and expectations, and your cousins did this, our neighbors did that, my colleague at work's child did this. That's not healthy either, because you're your own person, your journey is very different, their parenting skills are different, because it's very easy for parents to point out the things that you do or don't do, but it also comes from how they parented you. So whoever they're comparing you to, their parenting skills may also be different. That's why the child ended up there or ended up doing this. So it's kind of a two-way dynamic. And if you're constantly being pressured and being compared, then of course that's unhealthy, and it makes you feel like you're not good enough, and you're constantly in search of trying to please people and become a little bit codependent. So all these various unhealthy relationships have effects on how you view yourself, value yourself, feel about yourself, and portray yourself in the real world. And if you don't have these cleared up, dealt with, addressed, and healed, then of course that will affect your adult relationships. I have had my fair share of ups and downs with my dad. I have an incredible relationship with him now, and have had throughout my childhood, to be honest. But as any teenage girl, and a girl of an Afghan background who's moved to the West and is becoming a teenager, is making money out of the way she looks, so she's getting a lot of attention on her image, is of course going to rub any dad the wrong way, especially an Afghan dad who had to come and adapt to the society in the West. So of course we've had our fair share of ups and downs until we both kind of readjusted, understood, trusted, and respected each other's decisions. We had our clashes, but my dad is the most important man in my life, always has been, always will be. And so it's so important to me. And in our cultures, unfortunately, the dad usually is very emotionally unavailable and not present, because it's just how our cultural values are. The father is the provider, he's out of the house, he's protecting and taking care of the household, and the mother is there present in the emotional and traditional manner of things. So we don't really have very good relationships with our dads. And now that I've grown up and I have a good relationship with mine, I see how much that matters. I see how important it is. I value it very much, and I understand that if it is something that you haven't had or that you're still struggling with, that the sooner you address it and heal it, the better your other relationships and your view of yourself becomes. So that's why it's very, very important. I just wanted to wish all the fathers out there a very happy Father's Day. I wanted to thank you guys for watching my video. If you've enjoyed it, please subscribe to my page. Do share it with someone who may need it, and like and comment on this video. And I will see you guys here again next week. Thank you for watching. Mwah.